Students who use AI to replace their thinking will fall behind, but students who use AI to sharpen their thinking are going to, if everyone's using the same set of AI tools, how do you set yourself apart? So a question that I get from parents is, well, how do I know the universities won't think that my child wrote this essay with AI? Okay, everyone, good afternoon. I'm John Gardezi. I'm going to be presenting to you on a very interesting topic today, the impact of AI on college admissions. Really want to say thank you for taking the time to understand how this is going to be relevant in the world of college admissions. So we're going to have a very interesting discussion today. I ask that you keep all of your questions until the very end. And also please stay on mute for the duration of this presentation. So today we're going to talk about how students can use AI ethically and strategically. So for many of you, since about 2022, AI has become a big topic of conversation. So it's reshaping every industry, every area of life, and fundamentally it's changing the educational experience of high school students in countless ways. And so we'll talk a bit about how AI is reshaping education today. What are the opportunities and what are the risks? There's a lot of sort of doomsday talk about how AI is going to take over everything. And while there is some truth in that, there are also many opportunities for students to become better learners, to understand the world in a more deep and thoughtful way. And of course, there are associated risks, and we'll talk about both of those areas. And then finally, we'll go into some practical strategies that students can start employing today to use AI effectively and ethically. So just a quick introduction of who I am. So my name is John Gardezi. I'm a Harvard grad, class of 2009. I'm a former Harvard College interviewer. I have over 15 years of experience as a college admissions consultant. I used to work also as a management consultant at EY and Cognizant. I myself received a perfect score on my SATs. I've taught the test for over 20 years. And my students have gained admission to any sort of prestigious university you can think of. And so my personal areas of expertise relate to college admission strategy, how to develop your personal statement, particularly in fields like STEM, business, as well as medical school admissions. And also I do know a decent amount about AI and the future of education. And so really what we're looking at today is a revolutionary technology that is reshaping human life, perhaps as much as the rise of the internet, if not more. So I really think this is a very relevant topic today for us to talk about AI, and I'm excited for the discussion we're going to have. So I mentioned earlier that AI is changing everything. It was launched in late 2022. I remember the moment that I read the NPR article saying that ChatGPT would be launched. And there was a lot of discussion around how this would impact students because a common assertion was that AI could basically do student work for students, and there was just simply not going to be a need for homework, or perhaps homework would not have the same integrity that it once did. And so should students be using AI was the question in 2022. Now the question is not whether they should be using it, but how they should be using it. And so as I frame AI for you today in this discussion, I really want you to view AI as a force multiplier. Students who use AI to replace their thinking will fall behind, but students who use AI to sharpen their thinking are going to pull ahead of others. And so that's why it's important to talk about AI in a constructive way. So I want to take a quick poll from the audience. I know I said I'm going to leave all the questions for the end, but I have a question that I want to present to you. How are you using AI today? And specifically, if your student isn't there, I want you to answer for them. Are they using it for homework, for coding, for research? Are they using AI to study better, to brainstorm essays? Are they using it as part of their college admissions planning? So you can type your answers into the chat. I think this is really going to help me better understand where you and your families are coming from, your students. and understand what types of questions you may have. Okay, coding, research, I love it. We're actually going to talk a bit about research later. Okay, I see studying, brainstorm. Okay. Gosh. Homework. Career, I like it. Yes, you can use AI to explore different career pathways. Okay, great. So it sounds like we have a lot of AI adopters here on the AI adopters here on this call. So loving it, studying, research, career exploration, college. Oh my gosh. Okay. This is what I love to hear. So I first want to talk about how AI is transforming college admissions. So what has actually changed? And and specifically, I can even focus this discussion on how it's changing college counseling. So what was life like before AI? So I've been a college admissions counselor since, 2011. So in those days, which was not too long ago, we had Google, we had textbooks. You could go to your local Barnes and Noble and buy, college guides and do research on, different aspects of, college admissions. Of course, you had teachers and tutors that you could go to and ask about, what it takes to succeed in the admissions game. So there was a lot of opacity in this process, to be honest, and there were a lot of obstacles. And now with some of the different AI tools out there, you've got tools like ChatGPT and Claude, which are wonderful in terms of giving you information in very digestible formats. You've also got the rise of Gemini and Perplexity, and these are great tools for research and synthesis. And so they're really helping you, analyze large amounts of information. So that's really becoming very, very relevant to students who are thinking about, let's say, different pathways, maybe ways they can differentiate themselves. And as I saw earlier, there are lots of people using AI for coding. So GitHub Copilot, Cursor, other tools are really transforming the way that software engineers are working. And I have actually many friends who work at different FANG companies in higher up roles. And I've been noticing that AI is really taking over, is replacing a lot of the sort of grunt coding that was commonplace just a few years ago. So what are the colleges seeing? So university admissions offices are seeing AI tools become ubiquitous. Applications are showing up with more polished language, but also with more generic reflections and narratives that feel manufactured. So what is a classic example of this? A student writes an essay, they're hitting the deadlines, the November 1st early deadline is coming around the corner. They run their essay through Grammarly. It sounds great, it's formatted well, but when you read it, it's pretty generic. And rather than reflecting the experience of the student, it reflects the output of AI algorithms, okay? So they're seeing a surge in this type of content. And as you may already know, university admissions is getting much more competitive by the year. So there's a larger pool of applicants now. And so admissions officers are having to sift through AI-generated application essays. We're starting to see students really struggle to present their unique voice. We're also seeing the universities come up with different AI disclosure policies. And there's also an increased emphasis on interviews and demonstrated achievement. And I'll talk a little more about that, particularly the interview, because that's what I'm seeing is going to be the big shift over the next few years. And as we're framing all of this, keep in mind that colleges are not necessarily AI, including the Ivies. So a question that I get from parents is, well, how do I know the universities won't think that my child wrote this essay with AI? And that's really, I would say, an unhelpful way of thinking about it. they really aren't anti-AI. What they are is they see, where they stand is they see AI as a tool. It's a very useful tool. Like if you're thinking about an essay, you could perhaps pre-AI, pre-2022, go to Google and search best college application essays. You could then copy paste a bunch of different sections of different essays, weave them together, and present that. Now that is the same, is roughly the equivalent of how they would view an AI generated essay. You're taking content from somewhere, whether it's the output of an algorithm or the work of another writer, that work is not yours. So we have to view, we can view, I should say, the internet AI as a tool to help you improve your thinking and your writing and your presentation, to hone that which is already yours, not the work of others. So let's talk about the shift in admissions. So over time, and this has been happening regardless of whether AI came about or not, in the past, the basic question was, looking at activities lists and essays and recommendation letters, what did the student accomplish? Okay, so your achievements, your grades, your scores all mattered. Now the new question is, what did the student actually contribute? Okay, so that's where the authentic initiative, the real impact, the vulnerability, the growth over time, that's the new question. But the future question, and I think the future question and the new question are very linked, is that what can the student create, lead, and build? Now, why does this matter? Because the universities are thinking about not only the contribution you're going to make on their campuses, which is very important, thinking of their next 4 years with you, but also what kind of an alumnus are you going to be? How are you going to be out there in the world transforming society? And so these questions are really a great way for you to anchor what it is these universities are looking for. So let's take a moment and shift our discussion to the college essay, because the college essay is in every sense of the word, the area where you're going to spend the most time building out your college application, doing the packaging. So here is a question I answered about 1,000 times last year before we saw this explosion in AI in college admissions presentations. Can students use AI for essays? Well, the short answer is yes, but the more nuanced response that I feel ethically compelled to give is you want to use it in the right way. How you use AI, similar to how you use the internet, is very important in whether or not you're actually using it ethically. So what are some good uses? If you want to brainstorm essay topics and angles, like if you are struggling with your Common App personal statement, you give it 5 topics, 6 topics, and you say which topics would probably work well, that would be great. If you want to come up with an outline using AI, that is an equally valid use. Because AI is giving you a structure based on what admissions officers like. Perhaps the most common use of AI that I see is requesting feedback on clarity and flow, and also getting editing suggestions. So that feedback, that continuous feedback that you can get from Chat or Claude, is very helpful, and it's a good use. Now, you do want to have a human being stress test that feedback, because sometimes, I hear this all the time actually, AI can get it wrong. And so that's why it's important to have an experienced counselor with you going through this process. So let's talk about, I know I've separated this into green, yellow, red. I want to talk about the gray area, the murky area, the area where students and parents are often confused. So rewrites, okay? So you give your essay to AI, to Chat or Claude, and then it rewrites large sections. Now, if you're self-publishing a cookbook on Amazon Kindle, not too bad. Submitting an essay to Harvard, that's a little different, okay? So that's where, they're really not going to take an AI rewritten essay. They're gonna have issues with it. If you have a significant structural reorganization, that can be an issue, okay? Because if the essay is ultimately not going to be reflective of you as a person, like if the essay is just simply going to be too perfect, then that's going to be a challenge. And also, any sort of text that's, transitional or just whole paragraphs, inserting that AI generated text is not going to be in your favor. So that's like a gray area. And have there been students that have gone under the radar? I'm certain that's happened. But do you want to be the one that's caught or flagged for it? No. And then finally, what's a strong no? What's a strong, like, just completely inappropriate use of AI? Submitting an AI written essay as your own work, fabricating experiences, or using AI to misrepresent your voice or achievements. So if you query Chat or Claude and say, hey, create the 5 best awards and honors that are possible for me, and you simply didn't achieve those things, then that would be an unethical use of AI and would likely result in you being rejected. So that's how I would say think about how your student can be using AI. Now, let's actually dive into the AI written essay. So last year, I was part of a mock admissions committee at a major college consultancy. And so myself, several other college counselors have been working together with a few hundred students. We had about a pool of 300 students. And we actually had a former admissions officer for a top 20 university come in and review essays. What we found was that a lot of the AI written essays were quite obvious because we just had generic reflections. AI cannot replicate the voice of a full human in terms of their experience. And on top of that, even if the students hadn't used AI to generate, full paragraphs, we had overly polished language. Grammarly is notorious for this. Not to say that you cannot use Grammarly. Grammarly is a wonderful tool. But if the language is over polished and the reflections are generic, then it's not going to work. And then artificial emotional depth. Yeah, we saw a lot of this. There weren't truly human reflections. I like to tell my students that I work with that specificity breeds believability. The more specific you are in the reflections, the better off you're going to be. And also the ability to be vulnerable, which is quite hard because most of this college admissions game is about highlighting your achievements. Except for the Common App personal statement and some of the secondary essays, you really are bragging. But you're doing it in a structured way, in a way that's expected of you, and so that's fine. But when you start having an AI written essay and you're not able to go beyond those achievements, then the essay really doesn't feel human. So how can you use AI for storytelling? Okay, if you view AI as a collaborator, where you give your personal experiences and stories, you have some reflection, you have some self-awareness, where you struggled, how you grew, you talk about your personality, your values, your voice, and you give some very specific details. What can AI do for you? It can give you an outline, which is where many students struggle with in their writing. It might give you some follow-up questions to consider that will help you unlock some ideas. It may give you some editing suggestions, which can help to clarify certain points. It could also give you some alternative phrasing. And so what does that mean? You present your authentic reflections, you utilize AI as a tool, and then the outcome is your voice comes through and you're able to have a very compelling narrative, okay? And the essay that comes out is an essay that could only come from your student. And admissions officers will remember your student in their pile of thousands of applicants. So that's how you want to be using AI. So what I want to do is do a quick exercise with everyone. And I want you to ask yourself this. You don't need to post the response. Read this AI-generated paragraph on the left and read this real student narrative. And this is a hook, okay? So look at the difference. Take 1 minute and read these 2 paragraphs and ask yourself, which essay sounds more authentic? Okay, so which paragraph feels more believable? The one on the right or the one on the left? Right, so the one on the left is pretty vague. Anybody could have written it. The one on the right, you've got like a specific moment, an emotional truth, a unique voice. It's very unforgettable. Okay, so what feels believable? What creates emotional connection? What would the admissions officer remember 6 months later? So to put it simply, specificity breeds believability. And that's something that AI cannot generate. So let's go beyond essays. The use case for AI is not just simply related to your college application essays. It's in other areas. As you likely know, AI can be a personal tutor. If you're in, let's say, AP Calc BC, AP Bio, a very challenging course, AI can explain concepts. It can also be very, very helpful with conversational language skills. I myself have used AI in multiple languages and have found it to be very effective in terms of presenting responses, editing text, and make sure it's grammatically okay. Creating custom study guides, also for test prep. As an SAT instructor for over 20 years, I'm really impressed at how AI is revolutionizing the test prep field. I actually have done some testing myself of AI platforms for standardized test prep. And indeed, in terms of price point effectiveness, there's some really wonderful options out there. So another area that I'm seeing a growth in is AI in research. So there actually are quite a few companies out there that, are in this space. And so even some of my own Harvard classmates have branched out into this and creating AI-driven research companies. And so AI is really, as I mentioned before, a force multiplier when it comes to exploring academic literature, summarizing complex journal articles, generating research hypotheses, analyzing data, learning languages, etc. So again, it doesn't do the research for you, but it is a tool that you can use in your own research. In terms of extracurricular activities, AI, it really does lower barriers to execution. And what do we mean by that? In terms of developing apps and websites, it's very, very helpful. There are lots of different AI coding tools that you can leverage. If you're running a nonprofit or just simply any sort of a student-run organization, you can use AI to, draft proposals, design curricula, etc. AI is also wonderful if you have content that's going on podcasts, on YouTube, newsletters, etc. So very, very helpful there. AI is also wonderful when it comes to career exploration. So you're thinking about majors, thinking about, let's say informational interviews, building a learning plan, exploring industries. So AI can really cut through a lot of the, initial barriers that exist for students interested in career exploration. So, what are some emerging trends that we're seeing, AI related, otherwise? So given the rise of AI, what is it that colleges are going to start valuing more? And so we're going to see, a huge rise in leadership, in research. Okay, how are you? And leadership doesn't mean just being the president of 10 clubs. Leadership means taking initiative, getting other students to follow you, getting support from adults, community members, etc. AI is also helping, again, with research, as I mentioned, also helping you develop an original perspective, help you take risks. Another thing that I'm really seeing a lot of is in terms of interviews and recommendations, that the college interview and also recommendation letters from adults will become very important. We also will likely see the rise of more video interviews. And the video interview, it's interesting. It's been around for about 10, 15 years now. For many years, I used to work as a college admissions counselor with students in China. I still do work with a lot of students from China and other countries in East Asia. But there are actually companies that have been established to help students do video interviews, because one of the questions for universities was, if they're taking on a foreign applicant, how can we really know that their personality will be a great fit for our university? So there was the opportunity to present a video and share more about, who you were as a person. And so that human testimony becomes very important. And then also demonstrated impact. What are sort of the concrete, measurable outcomes from your work, school, community, research? So the impact that you're making will matter even more in the future. Also, evidence, proof of work, links to papers, abstract contributions, project portfolios. Many applications now offer you the opportunity to upload a portfolio for, let's say, creative endeavors that you've had. Also, GitHub work, websites, competition results are also very, very important, that you're able to highlight them. And so all of that can be verified quite easily. And then community impact, the people you've served, the funds you've raised, the programs you've built, etc. Okay, so why are authentic experiences becoming more valuable? Okay, so authentic experiences are becoming more valuable because if everyone's using the same set of AI tools, how do you set yourself apart? So your character is going to be something that's really important, that will shine through. Your curiosity, your resilience, your leadership, your relationships. All of this was very true before AI, by the way. So, the reason I bring it up is because many parents and students wonder, well, AI can create lots of content. It can present an image of a person, perhaps that's not real. And to an extent it can, but it's important to realize that, authenticity is a critical part of this game. And so it's really important that you can look at these different areas and see how you can highlight, lived experience. So AI in 2030, just 4 years out from now, what are we going to see more of? We're going to see more video responses. In all likelihood, video responses will be more important because they can, you don't have the opportunity to use essays. You can, what I mean by that is, it's harder to generate an AI video response, of someone or a character portraying you. We'll also see more live interviews. It'll be interesting to see the evolution of the college interview in the next 4 or 5 years. Students will also likely have the opportunity to submit projects, portfolios, and then we're also going to see likely AI disclosure policies. So all of this means that, look, the college admissions game will simply not be overrun by AI. Rather, admissions committees will be incorporating AI to evaluate you as a student more holistically. So let's talk also a little bit about, the skills that AI can't replace. AI is a powerful tool, but, there are skills that are worth investing in most deeply over time. And I want to just talk about this more specifically, an example of a career path. So I have relatives, friends who work in finance, and for those of you that have any experience with Microsoft Excel, there's been a lot of discussion around how, to the extent that AI can, it may replace this entire software package. But the reality is, if you're building something as simple as a financial model or any other sort of data model, what AI cannot do is it does not have the ability to be adaptable, to demonstrate judgment or empathy, teamwork, creativity, leadership, and communication, all of the things that provide a context within which AI can flourish. And so those human skills are going to endure, those, frankly, relational skills, one might say. And so these are the qualities that colleges and employers will continue to look for. And so that's going to be very, very important. So who will thrive in this new environment? Well, students who learn continuously. So the more you learn about AI's capabilities, the better off you're going to be. Also, the ability to ask good questions. If you go on Claude or Chat right now and you don't ask it the right questions, the outputs that you get will not be as strong. Also, students who are problem solvers. If you love solving meaningful problems, AI will help you tackle challenges. And then finally, if you're able to lead others, that's going to be very, very important. Okay? So remember, AI is a multiplier, not a replacement. So here are some practical guidelines for you and your students. I encourage everyone to use AI to learn. There's so much available online for students and families so that you can grow, develop. Use AI to help organize your thoughts and your work. You can use it also to explore, to brainstorm, but don't use it to, present yourself in an inauthentic way. Don't fake accomplishments. Don't use AI to write your essays or cheat on your assignments. And fundamentally, do not use it to skip critical thinking. So here's just some key takeaways that I want everyone on this call to have. Remember, AI is here to stay. The more that we embrace it and understand it, the better off we're all going to be. Colleges are adapting quickly. Whatever it is that you may know as an individual, colleges have probably figured out several months before. And remember that ethical AI use can strengthen your students' applications. So the more that you embrace AI use in the right way, better off you're going to be. And remember, authenticity is going to be very important in terms of presenting your achievements. Okay? So while AI can help with the surface level polish, what really set you apart before the AI era will set you apart even more in the era of artificial intelligence. And of course, those human qualities, character, curiosity, resilience, and leadership, those will continue to be important because AI cannot replicate them. So some tools that you can use, some of you may already know these tools: ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini. These are great for general use. If you're looking to do research, Perplexity, Consensus, Elicit are great. For learning, Khan Academy, AI Conmigo. It's offering personalized tutoring across all subjects. Notebook LM, and then also for coding. So these are all different tools. Many of them have like a freemium model. You can start off on the free version and then move on to a more paid version. I myself use Chat and Claude a lot. Perplexity is one that I'm also starting to use in terms of doing sort of deep research. For those of you that work in coding or software engineering, GitHub Copilot is probably going to be something that you're more familiar with. Again, familiarize yourselves with these tools. They are here to help you. And so just a final thought before we go into some questions. In terms of framing everything, don't ask how AI can do things for you. Rather, think about how AI can help you learn, create, and contribute more effectively. And again, as was the case before the rise of AI, your curiosity, your character, your lived experiences, that's what colleges are really interested in. So AI is a tool, it's a force multiplier, but in terms of that real world experience, that's only something you as a student can create. So at this point, I want to transition to questions. So we've got about 20 minutes left. If you have any questions around AI in college essays, research, how you can be using AI in high school, how are colleges identifying AI written content, how reliable are the tools, what is admissions going to look like, career implications, feel free to ask me any questions. I know we have limited time here, so if you are interested in a free consultation to learn more about, my services as a college counselor, please feel free to reach out to me, advancedlearning@gmail.com. It starts with an E, EDVANCED, learning@gmail.com. I offer free 30-minute consults. So if you'd like, you can also reach out to me there if I don't get to your question. So yeah, at this point, I want to turn it back to everyone in the audience. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat, and I will try my best to get to them in the time that we have left. Okay, our first question. How are colleges updating their curricula to prepare undecided students for a rapidly changing job market? And which majors are likely to be affected the most? So in terms of curricula, I would say that colleges currently are lagging in many ways. Outside of engineering, CS, and STEM fields, colleges are struggling to figure out, how should they be updating, fundamental ways of thinking and learning that have been around for centuries. So every university is taking its own approach. In terms of which majors are likely to be affected the most, what we're seeing now is, across the board, STEM students are having to learn AI most quickly. So this even goes beyond engineering and CS. I would say engineering and CS are going to be some of the more impacted fields, simply because so much of routine analysis and calculations is being replaced with AI. So humans aren't having to do the work. Now humans are having to do more higher level thinking and employing their creativity and ingenuity. So we're seeing a big impact there. I would say the humanities fields are experiencing some impact, but much less, given the nature of the disciplines. I think, after that, we're also seeing, a huge impact on, let's say, business. Business students are seeing the rise of AI in transforming a lot of their analytical work, their communications, project management tools that have come about. So I would say that those types of majors are experiencing a big impact as well. Okay, so next question: How are colleges authenticating AI written essay, text code, app versus normal? So there are a lot of different tools out there. One of the most common ones is Grammarly. So Grammarly actually has an AI checker. And there's also Turnitin, that's another big one. Historically was used to flag for plagiarism. And, within all of that, remember that there is no AI checker that's been created yet that is completely 100% accurate. What most of these checkers are doing is providing percentages, probabilities, I should say, of whether or not certain areas of work within, let's say, an assignment or a text, for instance, were AI generated. And so that's why it's really important that students are using AI ethically and that they're being mindful of what their university's policies are. Great questions, everyone. Okay, so the next question: are colleges seeing less students applying since AI is helping students learn now? In fact, since 2022 and the launch of ChatGPT, we've actually seen a rise in applications. So that's been ongoing, and if anything, AI is resulting in somewhat of a democratization of knowledge and access. And so if anything, we'll see in the coming years more students applying to college. Okay, so next question, how do applications like Turnitin, I hope I am not spelling it wrong, understand it's AI or not? So the short answer is they're using AI to check if there's AI. Is that a 100% foolproof way of doing it? No. However, if the adage that where there's smoke, there's fire really holds true in these types of situations, because if you have the majority of text, let's say in an essay, being flagged as potentially AI generated, then a professor, an academic department have strong reason to believe that a student may not have generated their own work. And then frankly, there always will be the human check. If the reflections, if the content is simply not up to par as to what a professor or department would expect of a student for that type of work, then that puts a student in jeopardy. So remember that, even the AI checkers are simply one tool. So next question, which college major do you recommend for students who want to pursue medicine and still relevant if that path does not work out? I'm hearing that AI is taking away jobs from doctors. Is it still worth pursuing medicine? Your thoughts? So I'll answer the last part of that question first. Is it still worth pursuing medicine? And the short answer is yes. There will be a need for healthcare professionals. As many of you know, there's currently a shortage of primary care physicians. Having many friends, and students who have gone into the field, medicine is still a very relevant field. Now, in terms of major, so it sounds like perhaps there's some consideration around what could be a backup major. To go into medicine, you can major in any field. You could be a folklore and mythology major and go in. In terms of a backup, maybe think about perhaps fields that your students are interested in: business, economics, applied math, statistics. Now, these fields will still have relevance in the era of AI. The question around, is AI taking away jobs from doctors? I don't see that happening. If anything, AI is empowering doctors to do their jobs more efficiently. And certainly when it comes to the front lines of medicine, in the primary care fields, we're actually seeing greater demand because of physician shortages. Okay, so next question, what kind of projects are considered authentic by colleges? Okay, so I think what we're really looking at is, how do we define authenticity? So projects that relate to a student's core interest, particularly in their major, projects that have a personal, sort of tie-in. Like a few years ago, I had an MIT applicant who got in to MIT, Harvard, and Stanford, and he created a radio wave imaging system, and that was relevant because his grandmother had a slip and fall in a garage, and so his system actually would help identify where people were behind walls, which was relevant in retail and military settings. So that was considered authentic. Okay, so the next question, does demonstrating a foundational understanding or project work in AI add significant competitive value to an application? I love this thoughtful question. Yes. At a very high level, if the student's applying to a field like computer science, data science, even mathematics, statistics, that's going to be very relevant to them. Now, if you're a humanities person, do you need as much of a deeper understanding of AI? Probably not. Do you need a functional understanding to make sure that you're able to address any concerns that might arise around the use of AI? Yes, but not at the same level. Great questions, everyone. It's rare that I have an audience like this. I want everyone to know that. And as a reminder, my email is on the screen, advancedlearning@gmail.com. Please feel free to email me if you'd like to schedule time. Okay, so next question. Can you suggest some ideas of writing an impressive portfolio as part of college applications, website, GitHub, artwork, etc.? So in terms of a website, the website is really the packaging. So going to Squarespace or Wix, building your own website, that's just sort of the wrapper. I think in terms of your portfolio, if you're strong in coding, certainly GitHub is going to be important, and building out a competitive portfolio that really is appealing to universities is going to be important. In terms of artwork, I would say if you want to build a strong portfolio, work with a great instructor or coach that can help you not only capture, create works, but package them, present them in a way that's going to be appealing, regardless of whether or not you're going to an art-focused institution or having an art-related major. So I would say if you're looking for that kind of more detailed guidance, have mentors. And certainly if you work with me as your college counselor, if you're in a very kind of specific field, like let's say you want to build an art portfolio, I personally work with an art studio in Paris that has American mentors to help students apply to university in the US. Next question, how important is SAT grades in the college application? What other extracurricular factors that build a strong college application? So grades in the SAT are foundational. Recently you may have read that the University of California is considering bringing back the SAT, and it likely will. Probably not for this season, but maybe next season or the following, because those foundational academic and test taking skills are going to be important. In terms of what other extracurricular factors that build a strong community application, I would say activities that relate to your future major, service, particularly in your local area, become very important. The arts, music, athletics only relate to those people who really want to explore college in those areas. Like if you want to be an artist, and particularly if you're going to an art-focused institution, then your portfolio matters. If you want to be recruited as an athlete, then that activity will be very important for you. So it all really depends on what direction your student is going in. SAT versus ACT, which one is more important for colleges? So they're both equally weighted. It just comes down to what it is that you want. Which one do you prefer? I usually send students down the path of the SAT because there are frankly more prep options, but both exams are equally weighted. Okay, so another question is, AI makes research work efficient. How is the value of research work in high school evaluated for college applications? So at a high level, the value of research will continue to be there. I think in terms of the quality of the research, whether the difference between a 3-week figuring out what you're interested in versus a lit review versus a published paper versus competing in ISEF, or any other major science competition or presenting at different conferences, there's going to be, and already is, truly a spectrum of outcomes when it comes to research. And so I've delivered some presentations on this topic, but at a high level, a way to think about it is the higher quality the research is, the more that your student is performing at the level of a college or grad student, AI is simply going to be an enabler and a force multiplier in that pathway. So next question, how do colleges view specialized online courses or certifications in machine learning and data science taken outside of high school? They view them quite favorably, particularly if you are going to be majoring in a field like computer science, engineering, mathematics, statistics, etc. The more certifications you can get, the better off you're going to be. Coursera and edX currently offer many online courses and certifications. And if you reach out to me, advancedlearning@gmail.com, you can set up a free consult and we can talk more about this topic in greater detail. Okay, so another question, what matters more, internship certificate or recommendations? Well, I would say the recommendations would likely be better, particularly if they relate to the internship versus some certificate, because they give a more three-dimensional view of you as an applicant. So having strong recommenders is really important. The next question, how are the college essay prompts changing in the context of evolving AI skill sets or trends? You know, I think to the extent that they're evolving, what we're seeing is, you know, I've seen recently more questions related to kind of, character development, more in-depth questions related to, majors, for instance. But I would say that fundamentally the college essays aren't changing, the prompts, I should say. It's really how we go about, as a student writing them with your coach, but then also how they're being kind of evaluated. And so I would say, we're not seeing like a huge change, but there is a broader focus on personalization, specificity, etc. So the next question, do colleges follow any standard format for the recommendations? Yeah, they typically follow, there's in the Common App, there is a series of forms that are completed typically by outside recommenders, and it's very streamlined and structured. I myself once was a high school teacher, and so I've followed those formats myself. So all of that is made streamlined. And then some high schools use, for instance, platforms like Naviance that guide the entire recommendation process. And again, very streamlined formats that have been around for over a decade. Okay, so next question, given how fast the AI field is moving, what skills should a 10th grader focus on developing right now to ensure they are a strong candidate by the time they apply to college, especially in the STEM field? So I would say AI certifications, courses, research projects are all going to be very, very relevant to, a 10th grader at a high level. On a more kind of tactical level, you're going to want to work with a college counselor who can walk you through the process of, what does that actually look like? Weigh different options, help you explore your interests. All of those things that AI cannot do for you, particularly around judgment, you're going to want to have a human counselor helping you sift through the things that are not as relevant to what you want to explore. So again, for those of you that didn't get my email, I'm going to type it in to the chat. I'm also going to type in my website, advancedlearning.com. You can book a consult there directly, so you can find time on my calendar. And we're coming up on the hour. So I want to say before we wrap up, thank you for your time. I appreciate everyone who came out. Certainly, if you gave me questions, I love them. And I look forward to being back on this platform soon. I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend and look forward to being in touch. Thank you so much.